Hello, I'm Owen Underhill, and I'm the Artistic Director of Turning Point Ensemble. I am joining you from the lobby of the Chan Center Auditorium at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. And firstly, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. We are very grateful to be here and able to present this artistic project to you from this territory. And over the last 6 days, we have been rehearsing and recording works for medium and large ensemble, which include fairly complex technology, including electronics and computers, from two composers who are now living on the west coast of Canada, David Eagle and Mauricio Pauly. So thank you very much for joining us now and experiencing this work. Please enjoy.
Africa. Deixa Goro. Italian Orchestra Canadian in a paragraph. Oh. Okay, this hop. At the left as things fin. Susan, farm set, Parfnori. Susan, farm set, Parfnori. Low may well be they all speak a lot of solar and then the lowly weather forms then through use saturate bagged and wind your swing. Go and hide. Okay, stop. Adventure at the left Hastings then. Susan, farm set. All. Yeah, so we go inside that inside. That's not that I have knowledge. I have.
Hello, I'm Owen Underhill. I'm the artistic director of Turning Point Ensemble, and I'm joined by David Eagle, composer. And we recorded today, David, 2 works of yours, and the one was called Unremembered Tongues. Can you tell us a little bit about what that piece is about, please?
Unremembered Tongues is for soprano and ensemble, and it started from listening to the Massey lectures by Wade Davis in 2012, and the lectures were about all of the languages that have been disappearing from the world at a phenomenally fast rate, and that's basically the idea of this piece, is working with languages which are either threatened or are having trouble surviving, or sometimes they're actually coming back, but they're languages which are being smothered by English primarily, or by modern culture. So that I have some of the, and the other source, I came across a book, some used books in Vancouver bookshops, of one of Latin fragments and one of Hawaiian chant from the 19th century, a Blackfoot language book, learning to speak Blackfoot, and just kind of different sources like that. And so the idea is to work with these languages and as fragments, knowing that these languages existed and the people still exist, but they're fragmentary, and in many ways they're sounds. And all sound, human sound, begins from breath. And so just the sound of breath is a really important aspect of the piece, both in the instruments and in the that is, musicians breathing through their instruments and creating air sound, and also for the singer. And then the other aspect is just the shape of the mouth. And so some parts of the text are actually in international phonetics, which is a system to identify any sound that we can make with our mouths. And so that's a big part of it. But international phonetics, of course, there's no meaning, right? They're just sound. And then for a composer, when working with languages, it's always I think for me, the meaning of the text and of the word that underlies is what's really inspiring. But also the sound is actually what carries one further, is just the sound and the vowels and the consonants and so on. And so in that aspect, it's a very musical way of listening to the languages, because after all, we don't understand them. So the languages that are starts with some languages from Northern Australia, which is really fascinating, because in a very small area, there are hundreds of different languages. Like maybe 20 miles, and there'd be a different language or a different dialect, and that was a way of identifying the people who were living there. And then I kind of jump back and forth to, for instance, Latin comes back at 2 or 3 places in the piece, and it's also some say it's a dead language, but it doesn't. It was a universal language, but now it's just kind of we just have it as a residue, even though it's a very musical language. Then we have some Basque, Blackfoot, and Cree, and then I have then there is Hawaiian as well, and this was because an important part of Wade Davis's lectures was about how the migration of people through the Pacific, and so Hawaiian culture it kind of ends focusing on the sounds of the Hawaiian culture, and lots of wave motion and ocean shapes to the phrases.
So there's all these languages which are in danger of dying away, and they have their sound worlds, but there's also an ensemble here, and there's also another layer, which is your technology and your processing. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the larger sound world that encompasses these languages.
Yeah. So Unremembered Tongues is maybe the fifth in a series of works that I've done for Ensemble with live electronics. And the live electronics, I'm using a Connect camera, which is a motion sensor, and it basically tracks the motion of the movement of my hand, which will then control the spatialization of the sound, and then and also in 3 dimensions. So when we listen to this with headphones, you might get a bit of a sensation of the sound going above you and behind you. And in a live concert, you would have 8 speakers surrounding the audience. So the idea of this is that the electronics is not hit a switch and it's there, but rather that the electronics become expressive. That the movement of hand, just like the movement of the violin bow or movement of air through an instrument, is a very expressive way of creating music. And I wanted to bring that aspect into the live electronics. And so that way, if it can pull back with the levels, the electronics can follow the phrases. So if there's a build-up, I can actually enhance the build-up by actually moving my hand closer, which will bring the sound closer to the listener.
Thank you. So the other work that we have performed is 2 forms of intuition, and that's a large ensemble piece for 14 instruments and also computer. And what does the title mean, David?
So two forms of intuition is the term came from Immanuel Kant, who talked about that how we perceive the world comes down to our understanding of space and time. And we see music as being primarily unfolding in time, and I wanted to bring in the aspect of space as well, so that it becomes part of the musical phrasing as well. So not just something going on in time. So this was the first piece in which I was using the Connect with an ensemble like that.
Yeah, so 2013 you composed this piece, and it was a time when there was a fair amount of work being done on extending acoustic instruments through electronics, or what was called a hyper instrument. Or can you tell us what a hyper instrument was and your concept for this larger piece?
Yeah, a hyper instrument is an instrument in which has a digital system or a computer system that becomes part of the instrument. And ideally, when a performer is playing an instrument, then the gesture, they're not just playing that instrument, but they're also playing the entire system as well. So do a pizzicato on the violin, then they can hear what's going to happen when that pizzicato is put into the surrounding sound. It is, the change is from your instrument is right here where you're creating the sound. The change is from that very local perspective to a more environmental perspective. So you see the sound that you're creating is part of the sonic environment as a whole. And when you work with an ensemble, it becomes it becomes a little bit more complicated because there's many people playing, and you're keeping track of your part and the other musicians around you, and so there isn't the same level of awareness of what's happening out for the listener. So there are these multiple perspectives on the music. In fact, where I'm out in the middle of the hall, and so which is kind of like the best listening position to hear both the ensemble and the electronics when it's a live situation. And then for listeners at home, when they're listening with their over the internet, and ideally through some nice headphones, you should get a pretty good sensation of that as well. That is, being in a sonic environment and aware of the ensemble in front of you, and then the sounds kind of immersing you.
Moving into 3 dimensions into a hyper orchestra. Now, it is a complex piece. How many microphones do you think we had on the stage there?
This is just so amazing what they've done at the Chan Center. And James Perella, the recording engineer, has just done a really fantastic job in sorting this out. So there's a microphone on each instrument in 2 forms of intuition. So that's there are 15 microphones there, and they're close mics to pick up all of the nuances and the gestures that the musicians are playing. And then there are the other recording microphones as well. And then on top of that, the ensembles are spread out on stage because we're keeping 2 to 3 meters apart because of the COVID protocols, and which changes the performance practice tremendously, because you can't, you're used to hearing the 2 violins side by side and they can respond to one another really well, and now they're kind of spread out as well. And so it's, in a way, it reflects just like in Unremembered Tongues, all these languages which have kind of disappeared. Well, we have definitely lost something in our musical practice, but what's amazing is how people are really changing how they play so that they can make this work in a very successful way. And it must be so hard for you being in the middle when you've got your musicians kind of spread so far out.
Well, it's actually a pleasure to be actually getting together socially distanced and playing your music. And so we're very glad as Turning Point Ensemble to be presenting your work. So thank you very much for the interview and for your music. It's been a special few days, and I hope that the audience enjoys these 2 pieces of David Eagle.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'm Owen Underhill, Artistic Director of Turning Point Ensemble, and I'm here with composer Mauricio Pauly. Great to be here with you and to be playing your music over the past several days. And you wrote a new piece for us, Mauricio, and maybe you can tell us what the title of it was, what the title means, and a little bit about how you constructed the piece.
Sure, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's very grateful to have spent all this time with you guys. It's been quite a pleasure. This new piece is called We and Flor de Chiflón. There's a little bit of English and a lot of Spanish in there. The key word is chiflón. Chiflón was a word that my grandma, and I think many grandmas in Costa Rica, would use to describe a wind, or more of a breeze that would come through some nook in the door or an open window to make you sick. So whenever you feel a little breeze, you have to be concerned that you might get sick and you should wear a coat. We're talking of a country where temperature oscillates between 30 and 25 degrees, so a breeze might bring it down to 23. Right. So it's a very particular danger. But it felt pertinent at the time to think that a flower, is the reproductive organ of some organism, to be inside the reproductive organ of this deadly breeze resonates with the moment.
So your piece includes acoustic instruments, electronics, you're part of it, and tell us a little bit about how you mix that all together. Okay.
Yes, it is something that I've enjoyed and been experimenting with for the last 10 years or so. The idea of using electronics integrated within the context of chamber music. And that involves working with players to find new techniques to bring their instruments and their controllers and their pedals and their computers and so on as one continuous line of performance. It's not that I play violin press a button and play violin, but it's all part of the gesture and of the musical phrase. In this case, I've recently landed in Vancouver. This is the first time I'm working with a Canadian ensemble in this sort of context. And I felt a thirst for integrating myself into that community even more than the invitation perhaps initially described. And I basically brought all those electronics to the ensemble, but also kept a little part for myself in order to be a part of for it not to be a quintet, but a sextet with me doing some of the work.
You have a large part, actually, and then harpist is pedals, and the trumpet has loops, and everyone is kind of involved in a number of different activities at the same time.
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate having the opportunity to get to know you through this commission. Now, on our program, we also have an older work of yours, and actually an acoustic work for clarinet and string quartet. It also has a kind of mysterious title, Clinamen, Clinamen, Clinamen. So tell us where that title comes from, and then maybe a bit about this piece and kind of how it fits into the person you were back in 2008, 2009?
2008, 2009. Yeah, Clinamen, Clinamen, Clinamen. A Clinamen is, as I understand it, Lucretius, I think, was the first to use that term in The Nature of Things, and he used it to describe when atoms are in free fall. This is hypothetical. Some sort of swerve is necessary for one atom to collide with another, and through that friction cause everything that we know as organic life. So that Clinamen is essential in that sense, or that random event. Somebody told me at some point while I was working on the piece that a Clinamen was also a theatrical term to describe a character or a situation that is dropped into a piece simply for formal reasons and not for plot-related reasons. I can't verify that that's true. The idea of putting it 3 times, I imagined someone just identifying Clinamen, Clinamen, Clinamen as they occur in real time. And the piece, I think, is a little bit like that. It has that, perhaps that distant observant perspective. At the time, this is 2007 when I was writing that piece, I was looking, there were a few things that I was trying to, I guess, move away from, and things that I was trying to move towards. One essential thing is that I was interested in creating a complexity of rhythm. I was interested separately from that on music that was very linked through chamberness. I wanted musicians to depend on each other for the music to move forward in a way that was not dangerous, but urgent. And I felt when writing complex rhythms and complex hocketed rhythms and nested couplets and things like that, that a lot of the attention of the players was given to counting. That the rhythm and the trying to be accurate in that respect was detrimental to aspects of timbre and aspects of inflection and aspects of actual relating as a chamber group, that we were only hocketing together because of the rhythms, but everything else was kind of just because. So this was an attempt, and we don't need to necessarily discuss very deeply the score, but I am creating complexity through continuity. And the only thing that is discretely notated, for the most part, is pitches, inflection, and timbre dispositions in all of the instruments. This, of course, generates a lot of complexity at the moment of rehearsal, because finding your place is suddenly dictated by other aspects that are not necessarily where are we in the bar. But I felt at the time, and working with the people that I was working, that it did create attention to these other aspects that I was interested in. Subsequently, I dropped that strategy because it was costly for other reasons, and it did tend to be a little bit samey. I this piece is a piece that I feel that I'm very happy about, and I hold a esteem, or what is the good word for one's own works. I still think about it, and I still like it, because I think it unraveled a lot of things for me. I like the way that it moves harmonically. I like the places that it gets to.
Yeah, it's quite mystical, I would say, in a way that you always feel that you're going from one world into another world, sometimes surprising world, and yes, the way it's sometimes in a kind of more standard chamber world, and at other times it's in a much more diffuse world, and I like the way that it is both harmonic and inharmonic, and rhythmic and outside of rhythm. So it almost feels hybrid, even though it is just a straight chamber piece. It almost feels like your more recent music. I see the connection to mixing of electronic and acoustic and maybe even vocal, let's say, in this piece. Does that make sense to you?
It does, and it pleases me that you hear it that way. Everything behind the piece is electronic. Before it becomes a score, I was working with audio, and my practice has always been linked to working with tape and working with loops and working with recordings and working with processing, and then trying to find the sound in the audio, and then finding ways of. I enjoy the idea of. I love orchestration, but I like orchestration coming from a sound that I found as sound already. In this case, a relatively reduced image of audio. I found ways to basically take snapshots from different perspectives of the same bit of audio and then juxtapose them over time. So that's why you get this sort of like, it seems that it's continuous, but it's also broken, and there's a certain discretion to the continuity. I think it comes from that almost, I don't know, prismatic technique. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to have you here in Vancouver. Maybe just to end, you can tell us, because you mentioned Costa Rica at the beginning, give us a little journey of how you got here.
How I got to Vancouver?
Yeah.
Wow, I left Costa Rica in 1999. That's 22 years ago. And I lived in the States for a while, then I lived in Hungary, and I lived in the Netherlands for a while, and eventually I arrived in the UK, where I lived for 12 years. And I met my wife in the States while I was living in the UK, and she's a Canadian woman who eventually brought me here, and we landed here in 2017.
Well, thank you for that and for your two works.
My pleasure, thank you.